This episode we're looking at how to hook up your Nanoleaf Canvas to your home control setup. So there are hundreds of reviews of the Nanoleaf Canvas online at the moment, so I will leave that to the experts. But one thing that I did notice was that the Nanoleaf app only controls the canvas locally, so when you're on the same network. So I thought what I would do is integrate it into my home control setup so that it could be controlled from anywhere. And of course this uses the Nanoleaf's application programming interface, or API, and if you're not familiar with how this works, then I'm going to go through that in this episode. So I set myself a limited number of requirements. All I really needed was for the Nanoleaf Canvas to be controlled via the HTML5 online panels that I have around the home. I wanted to be able to select multiple light scenes, whichever light scenes had already been set up using the Nanoleaf app. I didn't really need to set them up using this system, just to recall them. And also I wanted full control of the Nanoleaf Canvas from outside the local network so that it can be controlled from anywhere. So the first thing we're going to do is to create two switches in Domoticz, or whichever platform you use. Both switches are going to be set as dummy switches, so they won't actually send any messages out. They will just activate scripts when they are toggled. Well, the first one will be toggled anyway because that is an on-off switch called Nanoleaf Canvas, and then the other switch I've set as a push for on button, and that's called Nanoleaf Apply Scene. So the basics behind this are that we're going to set up a variable in the home control system, and this variable will contain the name of the scene that you want to apply to the Nanoleaf Canvas. So then when the Nanoleaf Apply Scene button is pressed, the script will find the variable name and change the Nanoleaf to that scene. So the first thing you need to do is to generate an authorization token, and that's by sending a curl request or similar to the IP address of your Nanoleaf Canvas. You can find that using your router, obviously, to determine what the IP address is, and then you send something to port 16021, which is the request /API/v1/new. So here is Nanoleaf's suggestion. You can curl the request as long as it's a post, and you just literally send to that address. And what will happen is that if everything's gone successfully, an authorization token will be returned. So whichever home control system you use, we need to create some scripts, and I've created 3 here. 1 which uses the Nanoleaf Apply Scene button, and 2 which use the Nanoleaf Canvas switch for on and off. The Canvas switch on and off are quite simple. They just call additional bash scripts, and we will go into what the contents of those bash scripts are very shortly. They're very simple. And the other one is a bit more complicated because that actually obtains a user variable from the Domoticz system, or whatever system you want to use, and then changes the scene to whatever the contents of that user variable actually is. So let's have a look at the first scripts, which are the on and off scripts. So in the script subfolder here I've got 3 scripts. These are all in bash. So the first one is the off script. As you can see here, it is just a put request. In here you would put in the authorization token that was returned in an earlier step. And the contents of this request is very simple. It's just data on value is false. So that just switches off the Nanoleaf Canvas. Now obviously conversely, the second script to switch on the Nanoleaf Canvas is exactly the same as this script. However, in the data it is on value is true. That's the only difference in that particular script. The Nanoleaf Scene bash script just requires a tiny little bit more in there because it needs to be sent a variable as part of the request for the bash script, because we want to actually send the scene name to it. So it's exactly the same as the on or off, apart from here you'll notice that instead of it sending state, it's sending to effects, and here we have select and then the effect name. And what I've done here is to make it easy to pass from HTML5 to this bash script, what I'm doing is in the HTML5, which I'll show you in a second, I've replaced every scene space with a underscore. So the bash script at this end has to remove the underscores and turn it into a space. Hence the 1/__space that removes the underscore and turns it into a space again, to send it over to Nanoleaf to select the scene, because obviously Nanoleaf thinks there are spaces in between the scene names, whereas in my HTML5, as I said, just to make it easier, I'm putting underscores in between them so that I don't get my inverted commas and speech marks all muddled up. And for those of you unfamiliar with sending variables via a bash script, it's very simple. So obviously when you're calling the bash script, you just put your variables one after the other when you're calling the bash script, and at the other end here in the actual script itself, you put a $, and then 1 meaning the first variable, and then $2 meaning the second variable, etc. And you can do lots of manipulation for the variables, just like I have here to replace the underscore with a space. So now we're at the HTML5 side, and you will recognise, if you've seen any of my previous posts or YouTube videos, the switch on and switch off commands, which can be called from JavaScript, and they merely send a command to Domoticz to switch the relevant numbered switch on or off. So of course we have a relevant switch because we set up one earlier in Domoticz. So we do have the device code for that. If you didn't know what it was when you set it up, you can go to devices in Domoticz and look that up. So we can send those on and off commands now from JavaScript, and we can connect those to buttons or anything else we wanted to in JavaScript itself. So then the JavaScript for Nano change scene that I've set up here requires a variable called scene name. In order to work, you need to pass through a variable of what the actual scene is called. And this does two things, as you can see. First of all, it changes the variable that we set up called Nanoleaf scene to the contents of scene name that's passed to the JavaScript. And the variable name is set as the scene name, and all we need to do now is to actually call that scene into Nanoleaf. So what we do is we switch on the button that we marked as Nanoleaf apply scene. So when that's switched on, it then triggers in bash the local command to change the Nanoleaf to whatever was in the variable name that we set on the home control system. So it all sounds rather complicated, but the end product of this means that as long as we can access the HTML file, which would be based on our home server from anywhere, we can then use any HTML that we like to call up any Nanoleaf scene or to switch the Nanoleaf on or off. Now I do realise that Nanoleaf already has if this then that and Echo and Google Home integration. And if that's sufficient for you, that's absolutely great. However, for me, I required a bit more flexibility and instant response times. I find that if this then that can sometimes take a while. And also, I haven't actually explored whether or not if this then that requires a device to be on a local network when the if this then that scene is triggered. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to have another look into that, and if you can let me know in the comments whether you've had any experience of building your own scripts using if this then that with the Nanoleaf Canvas, I'd be very interested to find that out. So now that you can integrate it into your home control system, you can see now that the possibilities for the canvas have expanded, because not only can you now control it from outside your local network, but you can also integrate it into larger scripts. So for example, if you wanted the Nanoleaf Canvas to indicate that the weather had changed in its forecast to include rain, you might want to be able to change the colour of the canvas accordingly, and of course you can do that. Or you may want it to be used as usable light when the lux in a particular room reduces to a certain level. Again, you can do that. So we've actually expanded the canvas, as we do hopefully most of the time on this channel, to incorporate a wider variety of functions that it was originally intended for, or that it can do currently out of the box. Anyway, we've come to the end of the video. There were many more on the way. There has been quite a long delay between the last one and this one, however we are picking up the pace again, so I'd like to thank you very much indeed for watching. Please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.